everyone, and happy Friday. Welcome to Luminar Coffee Break. I'm Angela Andrieux, Product Evangelist for Skylum Software, and today I want to share with you a couple of tips for working with detail, specifically noise reduction, where you want to remove noise and grain, and then also conversely with our details tool, where we want to make details more pronounced. Let me share my screen and we'll get started. I want to say hello to Pat. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions as we're going through this presentation, make sure you pop those into the chat and I'll do my best to answer them for you live. All right, up on the screen, I've got a really cool image taken, I'm guessing, from a helicopter. This is one of Ivan Kutanen's photos. He's our CEO of Skylum. And I have up on the screen the split screen view so I can show you the before and the after. It's a pretty dramatic change, but it really didn't take that much work to do. So let me right click on my image, go to adjustments, revert it to the original, and I'll show you exactly what I did. As you can see, the image is pretty flat. It lacks a lot of contrast. So we're going to do some things to make those details pop. As we do that, that's going to bring out some noise and grain, and we'll correct that as well. So I'm going to start by going to templates and click back to our main template screen. I'm going to scroll down to this category called Big City Lights. Seems fitting for a cityscape, right? And I'm going to choose Frosty. Now look what that did. It just all of a sudden popped those details, made the contrast so much better. And let me turn off the side by side and we'll just take a look here at the before and the after. And that's a one-click edit. Now for some people, you might be happy with that and that's totally fine. But I'm going to take this a little bit further and do some fine tuning to this image. I'm going to go to Edit and over to my tools. And let's take a look at the tools that were used. So when you apply a template, it automatically applies certain tools. In this case, we've got Enhance AI, Light, Structure. If we scroll down, anything with this little dot by it means that that was used on this particular image because we applied a template. I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to go to Composition AI. So one thing that really bugs me about this picture is it's a little bit tilted. We want to fix that. I'll go to Composition AI tool and level this automatically. We'll also do our upright tool, and that's going to fix our perspective correction. Look how wonderfully straightened out this image is, and all we had to do was click 2 buttons. From there, I can close my Composition AI tool. It'll apply the composition, and we can move on to further editing. I'm going to go down to Structure AI, and I love this tool because it enhances the appearance of detail. When I say that, it's in a technical sense, it's targeting your midtones and adding contrast to the midtones. So as I bring that up, you'll see that there's more detail appearing in the image. And I think that looks really nice for this particular shot. We'll also scroll down to our Mood tool. And this applies what's called a LUT, which is short for Lookup Table. And it applies a series of instructions to an image that deal with exposure and tone and color and things like that. So in this case, it applied one called Frosty. And we can adjust the amount of that particular LUT. Let me turn it off first here so you can see how much that dramatically changed the image, and then turn it back on. I'm also going to increase the contrast a tiny bit. When you increase contrast, that also increases the appearance of detail. And I'm going to increase the saturation. I like how it warms up these buildings down here in the foreground. It just makes the image a little bit more interesting. All right, so I have this image stylized how I want it, but I want to take a look at the details. So I'm going to zoom in up here at the top and take a look primarily at the sky. And that's where you're going to notice where you have possibly noise. And in fact, I'm going to zoom in to 200% so you guys can get a better view of what's going on. Now, whenever you're working with details specifically, whether that's noise reduction or the details tool, you want to zoom into at least 100%. You have to be zoomed in to really see what that tool's doing. And I like to go to 200% when I'm presenting online because compression with streaming, sometimes at the lower zoom, you guys aren't going to be able to see it. So that's why I go into 200. When you're working at home, 100 is probably sufficient. All right, so hopefully now you guys can see that this image does have a fair bit of noise. We're going to correct that with our denoise tool. And I'm going to pull up that luminosity denoise to make that just disappear. All right, and that smoothed out a ton of detail. Let's take a look here at the before and the after. Now, that's a really great change, but if you notice, we also lost some of our detail here in our building and in the other structures around here. So if I scroll over here to an area where we want more detail, let's go ahead and turn this off. Let me wait for it to render here. There we go. We go off and on. So we did get rid of the noise, but it also got rid of some of our details. So we're going to go up to our details tool and bring some of that back. Now, small details is something that you have to be pretty careful with. This tends to actually accentuate grain and noise and artifacts. So if you use it, you want to use a pretty low amount. Let me go ahead and just for showing you what it does, move that all the way to 100. And you see that the image gets very grainy, and that doesn't do good things. We can actually pull it to the left, and you'll see it softens all of those soft details, small details. Let me go ahead and I'm going to just pull this back a tiny bit, and you'll see that also smoothed out some of the detail. Now we're here to add detail, right? So that's where the medium and large details really come in. And I'm going to pull our medium details up pretty high, and I'm also going to bring up our large details. And that's going to compensate for some of that lost detail that we got from using small details and pulling it negative, and also from our noise reduction. So now let's turn that off and back on again. I think it could actually use a little bit more. We'll pull that up, and we'll also add some sharpening. Now sharpening works a little bit differently in that it goes for the edges. So you'll see on the edges, those edges of the buildings and all of the lines are going to appear more crisp. So let me go ahead and move this way up, and you'll see that all of a sudden these lines become very pronounced. Now I see it especially here. You can see we've got a little bit of a white halo happening, and you can see it right here as well. That's a sign that you've gone too far and that you have over sharpened your image. So you want to back it off and get rid of those halos. And I think right about there works really well for this photo. So let me go ahead and zoom out. And now we have a really clean, beautiful image that didn't take us a whole lot of time to do. It probably took more time for me to talk through the changes and why I was moving detail sliders in a certain way than it did to actually move them. So let's take a look here at our overall before and our after. It really is a tremendous change and makes the image so much more interesting. Once we've cleared up some of that haze and we've cut through that and made it more contrasty, my eye just wants to wander through this photo, take a look at all of these buildings, look at the reflections in the side of this building here and over here. I think it's really just a magnificent image. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this and learned a little bit on how to manipulate detail and specifically reduce noise and to bring back some of that structure and contrast and those really cool details that you want to keep. Remember, when you're working with denoise and details, to zoom into at least 100%. It's going to make a huge difference in the way you perceive what's happening. If you do it while you're zoomed out to fit to screen, you're really not going to see it change. And you might actually have a tendency to overdo it because you're trying to see those changes when you really need to be zoomed in. So with that, I'm going to wish you guys a wonderful weekend. If you're in the US, happy 4th of July. Hope you guys have a great time. I will be back and see you on Monday. Bye, guys.